Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Mind of Marlin and another Treetop Talk. The ducks are fed, the chickens are fed, and now it's time to feed your head. Right now, the President of the United States is ill with COVID-19, and generally speaking, I would be sending my hopes and prayers, but these days, I have to save those for mass shootings. Have you noticed that those aren't in the news right now? Maybe it's because over 900 people a day are being killed by a virus. So nobody is talking about mass shootings or too many guns. The media usually waits until another mass shooting before we launch into that debate. The journalist Eric Pooley was the first verifiable use. If it bleeds, it leads. In 1989, Grins, Gore, and Videotape, The Trouble with Local TV News, was a story about how the media covered violence. Well, now that gun violence isn't in the news and we aren't offering up any platitudes and polemics, maybe it's time we bring it to your attention. Now, I grew up with guns. As a child, I played cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians, and there was always guns involved. With my thumb pointing up and my finger extended, I could shoot all day long and never have to reload. My gun would never get jammed, and I didn't have to worry about going through a background check. My gun could be modified to fit the occasion. My pistol would become a rifle. My rifle become a machine gun. My machine gun become a bazooka. Bang! Rat-a-tat-tat, kaboom! Was all it took to bring to life and make it real for me. I never did get the hang of a missile launcher. I loved my gun because it never missed. And when I was done shooting, I could blow the smoke coming out of the end and finger it with the kind of flair that only a highfalutin gunslinger could. Guns were everywhere when I was growing up. When my father was a teen, this was back in the Depression era, he was on the National Rifle Shooting Team and worked at a shooting gallery in Coney Island. In his day, you could check out a .22 caliber rifle out of high school and take it home for target practice. Imagine that, checking out a rifle the same way you could check out a basketball. There wasn't much of a crime rate during the Depression era. Because everybody lost everything. There was nothing to steal. We're not counting the mob. When he was 89, he put a small caliber Derringer to his head and he shot himself. It's unfortunate. His skull was too thick, which he used to joke about. And because the bullet didn't kill him, he was taken to the hospital and put on life support. It was up to his children to finish what he had started by pulling a trigger and left them the finality of pulling the plug. I do not have any judgment about people taking their own lives. It's their life and they should be able to take it. It would just be a little nicer if people could just simply take a drink of a cocktail instead of making a mess. I am now a statistic, being one of 40% of Americans who knows somebody who's been fatally shot or committed suicide with a gun. It was the only time I recall him saying, "This is going to hurt me more than it will you," and me believing him. But it was too late for me to tell him. I've watched over my lifetime the proliferation of guns in America and always wondered, why of all the nations in the world does the U.S. create the kind of carnage on our streets that other countries have in their war zones? Mass shootings have become so the norm that the response now is another one. As of September 30th, 2020, there have been 486 shootings that fits the criteria, resulting in 392 deaths, 2,052 injuries for a total of 2,444 victims. And it's only October 6th. In 2007, a gunman went on a shooting spree, and since then, 25 other mass shootings have occurred. That's 2.5 every year. And these are just the mass shootings, the one that gets lots of TV coverage. Mass shootings defined as 4 or more people killed, and you can include the gunman in that body count. How many of you remember the Orlando Pulse Club shooting? 50 people died. And a little over a year later in Las Vegas, 58 people died from a mass shooting. We are all horrified, but we still can't look away. It's like driving by an automobile accident. According to Gun Violence Archive, a nonprofit website that scours more than 1,200 sources to get its data, between 2005 and 2015, 797 Americans were killed by violence. That's 301,797 Americans were killed by gun violence. It bore repeating, so I repeated it. Compare that to the 58,000 U.S. soldiers who died over the course of 10 years in Vietnam. The number of U.S. service members killed in Iraq between 2003 and 2014 was 4,491. Do people understand that 67 times more gun deaths happen on our own home turf than in the Iraq War in the same period of time? I don't want to hear, "You're killing me with this," because we as a nation are killing each other. I mean, what is up with that? Only Dracula could be so happy to see so much blood flowing. I mean, I get it. This is the season to be scary with Halloween and be frightened. And if this doesn't do it, get out your scalpel and start opening your arteries. A study done by the University of Michigan found that a child will see 200,000 acts of violence and 16,000 murders on TV by the time they're 18. The pessimist would say, "Oh my God, this can't get any worse." But the optimist would say, "Oh yes, it can." On Wikipedia, there's a list of titles of first-person shooter games in alphabetical order. Just between A through D, there are 212. Let's take one game, very popular one, Call of Duty. Very popular first shooter video game, which has made billions and continues to do so. According to Money Inc., the franchise is worth $11 billion, which is more than all of the Star Wars movies combined. Yes, if it bleeds, it leads, but if you can kill, you'll make a killing. To bring it back to the number of virtual deaths kids and young adults see, we will use a particular mode in the game of Call of Duty called Capture the Flag. The average total death on both teams is probably going to be about 70 per round. There's 2 to 3 rounds per match, so 210 deaths per match. Let's say a match lasts 30 minutes, so there's 20 matches going on at the same time. And you know there's more than 20 matches going on at the same time. That's 20 times 210 equals 4,200 deaths every 30 minutes. And through 24 hours, that's 201,600 deaths per day, virtual. And that's for one game, one day, one mode. The numbers aren't precise, but it puts into perspective all the first-person shooter games since the beginning of 2000s. According to the story in the Washington Post in 2013, people have spent more time playing one particular shooting game than humanity has existed on Earth at 2.85 million years of playtime. And people think shooting others in a video game is time well spent. Jesus, we could have built 10 walls of China for that amount of human time spent playing a game. But let's not stop at TV and gaming consoles without adding in all the influence Hollywood. This picture is incomplete. Almost 20% of all movie posters in 2016 had a gun front and center that were being held by our favorite role models. All these A-list stars sported guns in a "I am cool" pose for the selling of a movie. George Clooney, Liam Neeson, Tom Cruise, Angelina Jolie, Clint Eastwood, Bruce Willis, Daniel Craig, Matt Damon, Denzel Washington, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, Sylvester Stallone, John Travolta, Samuel Jackson, Mark Wahlberg, and Sean Connery. And that is not all of them by a long shot. And yes, the pun is intended. All of those movie stars that kids look up to and think, when I grow up, I want to be just like that, where I can solve my problems with a gun, and all I need to remember is the bigger the caliber, the bigger the problem it can solve. I hope all of you are feeling safer with the guns in your lives, and I pray, I really, really pray and wish and hope you never end up like I did as one of the 40%. Aloha, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday.